Welcome to episode number 94 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Mariners reliever Justin Topa, a conversation about his journey to the big leagues, going viral on the internet, and his card collection. That was pretty cool as well.
Before we start the show, here's your reminder that if you're listening to the podcast, make sure to download, leave us a 5-star review, and follow the show wherever you get your audio podcasts. Those reviews and downloads, they help us out a ton. So if you just take a couple extra seconds to do it, you're doing us a big favor. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube where the full video podcast is, and follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling. And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball podcast network, recording here on Monday, January 15th. And I just got to say, I'm ready for baseball, and more importantly, baseball weather, because as I am sitting here right now in my bedroom here in Oregon, I look outside, Lyle, and I see a sheet of ice 2 inches thick covering, well, everything outside. And I'm like, it can't play baseball in this, first of all. Second of all, I can't do anything either. I'm really looking forward to once this episode's done, I actually have to go walk down a hill to go scout some stuff out. Like, that's the point we're at, where I have to worry about slipping and falling. And I got to say, I'm sick of it, and I want the warm weather back.
So are you going to slide down your driveway? This is what I was asking you pre-recording.
I might have to. My driveway is, it's the parking lot for our apartment's about 5 feet off the road, and there's this little sloped driveway, which is covered in ice. It is covered in a sheet of ice about 2 inches thick, and well, I certainly don't want to send my car down that. So you're right. I think I should do that myself, and I'll have to report back. I always say snow is great in theory, and then it sits on the ground, and then it sucks. And everyone across the country is dealing with this, unless you live in Florida or Arizona. You don't really have to deal with this, but everywhere else, it seems like is getting absolutely blasted. So thankfully, this is not a niche complaint I have here today.
What's the actual temperature in Corvallis right now?
It's like 25 degrees, which it's just like annoying. It's cold. It's not super cold, but cold enough to keep everything frozen. And, one day is fine. And then it gets into like 2 and 3. And as we talk about with Justin Topa and yourselves sharing an affinity for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, well, that's about all I have left here to eat. Is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, because I'm out of most of my other food. It's tough out here.
Sounds like you have all you need right there. I'm gonna be honest.
I have multiple days worth of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and to be honest, I don't think I'd get sick of it. But dog, me and you are both somewhat healthy people, so I'd like a little bit of a balance besides only eating peanut butter.
All right, fair enough. I did see it was getting pretty cold in Seattle these past few days too. Like, it was in the high teens, low 20s, same thing. I mean, did they have snow? I think they had a little bit, not
maybe
ton.
A little bit.
I think it was just cold. I will say 25 degrees does sound chilly. I will say here in Manhattan, New York on Wednesday, there's a low of 16 degrees. So if it's cold in Corvallis, it may actually be colder here.
Big difference between the big city and where I'm at right now. The Pacific Northwest, as many of our listeners already know, is shit when it comes to clearing roads and making things drivable. Mm-hmm. If you go to the Midwest or the East Coast, as soon as it starts snowing, we have the snow plows out, people are salting the streets, and it is clear and good to go by the time the morning rolls around. Do you know how many people have come and treated the street in front of my house or my apartment?
Oh,
none. Zero.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the roads around here outside of the interstates have been treated at all. It's just ice. So we just have to sit here in this frozen tundra. I'm essentially in an igloo right now, is what in theory, because everything's frozen outside, and I get to wait for it all to melt on Wednesday. It's fun.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest basically says we don't get enough snow or ice every year to put the funds into this stuff, which makes sense. I mean, it usually is only a couple days a year compared to a lot of other places where it gets really cold and you need street sweepers and people to, pave off the road, or just clear off the roads and all that stuff. But yeah, in the Pacific Northwest, it's basically like the couple days a year it happens, you kind of just have to deal with it, don't you? So you're in the middle of it right now.
So if I have a concussion on Friday's show, you'll know it's because in my journey to go get some salt to melt some of this stuff, I fell and hit my head. So watch out for that.
Yeah, welcome to this solo episode here on Friday of the Marine Layer podcast. TJ is sitting in the ER. We wish him well. Anyway, the Mariners. So, yeah.
Let's hope not.
Yeah. Speaking of the Mariners, by the way, no major league moves if we're going to segue into this, but they did have some exciting news here in the last couple days because they just signed their newest international class.
We talked a little bit about Dawel Joseph, who ranks from MLB Pipeline as their number 7 international prospect. He gets the Byron Buxton comp, super athletic, is a shortstop now, but can move out to the outfield. We did talk a little bit more about him in our mailbag episode last week. Last week was the mailbag episode. Right?
Yeah, I want to say
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago now, maybe a week and a half ago. But
yeah, in our mailbag episode, we did ask friend of the pod, Joe Doyle, for a little bit of a scoop on Dawel Joseph. So if you want to hear that, you can go back to our mailbag episode and learn a little bit more about Dawel Joseph. If you really want to learn a lot more, Joe's podcast, The Overslot, he did an episode where he just talked about Mariners signees and who they're expecting to sign in this cycle. And he has a lot more detail there. So go check out our friend Joe Doyle for more of that. But it's official as of today on the 15th.
People should be excited. Look, he is not as highly touted as Felnine Celestin when they signed him last year. That was like the guy for the Mariners that they signed. Like, again, Julio was ranked 10th when they signed him. Noelvi Marte was ranked 10th. Lazaro Montes, I believe, was 7th. So obviously these rankings can kind of, they are not always indicative of who the best player is going to be in each international class. But obviously the Mariners have had guys in the 10s range become stars like Julio. But when you sign really, really highly touted international players, it's easy to be excited. And Celestin was the pinnacle of that last year. But Dawel Joseph, look, he's a shortstop, but he's a dude that's so athletic that even if he outgrows the position or they just decide maybe he's not a true infielder, he can play center field if they have to. Insanely good speed. He's got power. His bat speed's getting better. Like, there's a ton of tools in this guy's belt that say he could be a really good player. And look, we're projecting. We haven't seen him play live. He is 16 years old. It's going to be a while before he gets stateside. But there's reason to be excited about the guy. There's reason to think he could really, really have a future in the organization if everything pans out.
The other top 50 guy they signed was Leandro Romero. He's number 48 on Pipeline's top 50. He's also a shortstop, high upside, as the notes say, but he has a lot of errors when he's there. Again, not a guy we're all that familiar with, but 2 top 50 guys officially have signed with the Mariners as of today. So the farm system, we talk about the youth of the farm system. I mean, it just continues to get younger, and at the lower levels especially. And that's where the strength of the system is. Maybe by the end of the season this year, it will be stronger towards the top. But with more international signings, we're talking about from A+ ball down, from Everett down. That's where the strength is, and it continues to be fortified at every level.
And how about the shortstops? How about the shortstops in this system, especially at the younger levels? Like, you can go as far down now as Dawel Joseph in terms of age range, being 16 years old. You take a step up. There's Felnine Celestin. You take another step up. There's the 3 first-rounders, Colt Emerson, Ty Pete, or I should say Fermel is an outfielder, so Pete and Emerson, and Cole Young. It just keeps going and going and going. There is infielders galore early on in this Mariners minor league system, and there's reason to be excited about it because it's a bunch of good athletes, really high upside, and guys that a lot of people should be excited about.
Mm-hmm. Certainly very exciting, and yeah, I'm hyped for these guys, but I wouldn't expect too much notable stuff from Dawel Joseph for 2 years at that. I mean, he's got a while to go. He's got some stuff to work out, but hopefully by the time he's 18, he's stateside and you can go down to Modesto and watch him.
Let's hope it's exactly that. I don't know. Would he be in spring training this year? Probably not, right?
No, he'd probably be at the Dominican Academy.
Yeah. I was just thinking because Celestin was last year a little bit, I think.
Was he? So, I thought he was at the academy.
He was there in spring training for a little bit. So maybe they'll get a glimpse of Dawel Joseph and bring him up to Arizona for at least a period of time. But again, it'll be nothing more than probably a lot of instructional work. Maybe he'll play in a little bit of the backfield games if they feel like he's ready for it. But yeah, he's a while away. It's just when the time gets here, there's reason to be excited. So Dawel Joseph, number 7 prospect, Leandro Romero, number 48 prospect. two of the big names that the Mariners signed in this international class. They signed 8 total guys, but Dawel Joseph, that's the highlight. So that's the Mariners news here on this Wednesday episode, recording here on Monday. International class is here. Guys will be excited about. Certainly follow them as they go along. We know TJ and I will be. You all should certainly do so as well. Let's pause for a second and hear a quick word from our friends over at Pagotcha's Pub 85. That's Pagotcha's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Where do we like to go hang out? To go watch some games, hang out with our friends, have some good drinks? Over there. There's 22 TVs in the place with the NFL playoffs going on. There's basketball, there's hockey, college sports, certainly college hoops. You want to go watch some games? Head over there. Head over there. It's a really fun spot. It's a pool table in the place, darts in the place. You can go hang out with your friends and you can go watch some games. It's really laid back, and we certainly always love to go hang out. And if you go during happy hour, you can get some really great deals. Happy hour is Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 p.m., which include $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, $4 house wines. Get all that, some great pizza, and a good time with your friends over at Pagotcha's Pub 85 in Kirkland. So, we had Justin Topa on today. That was pretty fun.
That was pretty fun. I was happy to meet him for the first time. You had gotten to meet him. You gotten to talk to him in person at the field during the season. I, of course, was down here in the lovely state of Oregon, unable to talk to Justin. It was great getting to meet him for the first time. And man, what a genuine guy. Seriously, like what a genuine guy, and the epitome of hard work it takes to get to the major leagues. I mean, we're talking about someone who didn't break into Major League Baseball until he was nearly 30 or 30. Like, that's insane to have to wait that long after getting drafted out of college to get to the big leagues. That's perseverance right there. And for a stop in indie ball, then through the Rangers, Brewers, and now the Mariners here at the big league level, just awesome to see, an even better dude. So we're happy he took some time for us.
He was awesome. Little side note, little inside scoop we got off air. I'm sure he will not care if we share. Justin Topa, runner-up in the Seattle Mariners Fantasy Football League to Josh Rojas, who won the league. Justin said, yeah, I was a little bummed, but I would be too if I finished runner-up in a fantasy football league. So in case any of you were curious, we don't know all 12 guys that were playing in the league, but it sounds like those two were in the championship, and Rojas gets bragging rights for the next year. So Justin Topa, awesome guy, big football fan, but we enjoyed all the time that he took. We really enjoy all the time that we got to take to talk with him and hear his story.
So with that, let's not delay any longer. Let's get to our interview with Justin Topa.
All right, we've got Mariners reliever Justin Topa. All right, Justin, I'm going to let you pick how you want to start this interview. Do you want to do Babe Ruth talk now or later?
I saw that from Sauce. We can do it now. We can go right into it.
So real or not real?
It's tough for me because I know that I saw the clips from Sauce. You see the one clip of Babe Ruth just all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to believe that he's real. I think that I'm more on the side that Ted Williams home run is not real, 100% not real, just from being at that red seat there at Fenway. I'm going to go Babe Ruth, yes, real, even though we don't have a ton of documentation.
Is this like a consensus in the bullpen, or is this Sauce just like stirring stuff up with everybody?
No, I think there's a lot of people that believe that he's not real. I think it's more so it's like we mentioned, there's only like 1 or 2 videos that you just see on repeat. And then just the fact that like he was literally just swinging like a tree from out back that he cut into a bat. You know, you hear the stories and all that. You start to question a lot of things.
Justin,
Okay.
Could you imagine playing on the diet he had? Like,
No.
what would your stomach feel like?
Yeah, it'd be in shambles. You know, like hot dogs and beer, and I'm sure that there was some cigarettes involved in there. I couldn't even imagine. You know, grabbing a hot dog between innings or something like that.
Is there one guy in the bullpen that just tries to say like, "Oh, you guys are morons. This is ridiculous. The stuff you guys are trying to cook up," or is everybody pretty open-minded and says, "Oh, I can listen to an argument on this"?
No, everybody's open-minded. We have, you know, I was talking to a buddy the other day. It's like we have a lot of time in the bullpen. You know, the first couple innings, we kind of just feel it out, especially with our starters. It's kind of nice last year. You know, you didn't have to get moving too early. But so yeah, you look down to the bullpen, you kind of see the hijinks going on early in the game. But yeah, no, everybody's open minded and for the most part are ready for an argument one side or the other.
You mentioned the Ted Williams thing. So what was your reaction then when you guys walked out to that seat?
Yeah, it's just immediately no chance. And then so the funny thing was when we were in Fenway, I forget who walked up there with me. I know for sure it was me, Adam Bonero, one of our staff guys, Justin Topa, bullpen catcher. And I'm trying to think I think Sauce might have been there, and I can't remember if there was a fourth or not, or a fifth or not. But yeah, we get up there, and there happened to be like the staff member for Fenway Park doing like a little like tour talking about like, oh, this is the Ted Williams seat. And the story, I don't know if you guys have heard like the actual story about like how they know it was that seat. It was like some guy like fell asleep in between games of a doubleheader and then woke up the second game by getting hit by a home run by Ted Williams, and that supposedly was where the guy was sitting. And yeah, you like look at it from the seat and you're like, there's zero chance anybody's getting a ball out here. Especially, I know that years ago, I think Sauce mentioned it too, like Big Poppy tried to do it with like a metal bat in batting practice, like the perfect scenario to try and do it. All things like lined up, and he still couldn't do it. So it's like, I don't believe that.
So he woke up to the ball hitting him, so he didn't actually see the ball connect with the bat, fly through the air, and hit him.
Supposedly, that's the story. I guess obviously people were sitting around and saw the ball supposedly get there. But yeah, that was the story that the person running the tour had said. So you take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Huh. I haven't heard the story before, but I mean, I know that Ted Williams seat exists, and the legend is he hit it all the way out there. But I hadn't heard the story of some guy was asleep and then it hit him, and then you basically just have to take their word for it. So honestly, like when Sauce talked about this, at first I said maybe I could listen on the Babe Ruth thing. I'm flipping all of a sudden. Like now that you're telling us this Ted Williams story, I think the Ted Williams thing is less believable all of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, if that's the actual story that this guy just woke up to being hit by a ball in right field at Fenway, it's like, there's a lot of factors that could have been involved. Somebody could have threw the ball. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Did you guys run that past the Red Sox bullpen too? Is this something they've already discussed? Because those bullpens at Fenway are right next to each other. It's easy conversation.
We did not. We should though. We should maybe this next year when we're up there, we'll see what their take is on it. Because I'm sure they've heard the story. Obviously, they do tours every day there, so I would assume that somebody's caught wind of that story, and they definitely had a conversation about it.
Here's a decent segue to something you're pretty passionate about. If you were to stumble upon a Babe Ruth trading card, are you keeping it? Or if you're actually on the belief of, well, he didn't really exist, do you say to yourself, well, anybody can have it? He's not a real baseball player.
No, I mean, I guess it would be, what card it would be, I guess. There's a lot of valuable ones. So I think from the monetary standpoint, I would keep it. But yeah, I think that even, real or fake, I don't know if you guys have seen the one of the newer cards that has come out recently, the Tom Brady, in the new Bowman set. There's like a Tom Brady what if he actually signed with the Expos, and everybody's like talking about how I think it ended up selling for almost 180 grand or 170 grand at auction recently, and somebody found that original photo and it's not even Tom Brady, it's just like his face photoshopped over somebody. So like that is kind of the example, I guess, right? Like you see a fictitious player, granted Tom Brady's a real person, but fictitious sequence of him playing for the Expos. So I guess kind of give or take on either side.
If you guys want to go check out Justin's card collection, you are starting to document them a little bit on your Instagram page at the Topa Collection. So off of that, I just want to start. Where did your card collecting start?
Pretty early on. My dad was a big collector growing up. He had a bunch of older cards, and when I was younger, we had a AA team in my hometown. The Binghamton Mets used to be the Binghamton Mets. Now it's the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. So growing up, going to games there, like I said, just opening packs of cards on Christmas, randomly going to the store, grabbing a couple of packs, opening them up with my that kind of transitioned to, going to minor games. I was that kid that was down the lines trying to get autographs from everybody, baseball, photos, whatever it might be. So that's kind of where the collection started. I got the opportunity to be a bat boy for the Double-A Mets when I was in middle school / high school. So got to, see a lot of those guys, get some cool memorabilia from them. And it's kind of transitioned to now. I collect a lot more, but I'm more like specific to what I'm looking for. Back then it was kind of like I'll get anybody to sign a card or baseball or anything like that. So now I've been a little more picky with what we add. Yeah, it's cool. It's something that, like I said, the connection with me and my dad, going to a bunch of games, growing up, and just kind of building stuff over the years. I'm in my basement now, so there's a bunch of stuff like hanging on the walls. Some stuff that I've had for when I was a teenager to stuff that I recently just got.
So are you now specifically going after, are you like eBay shopping cards, going after specific cards that you think are going to have some better value in the future? Or are you still in the, hey, let's buy 60 packs and rip them all?
I'm more on the buying eBay side. My wife probably doesn't want that. But yeah, I'm scouring pretty often just to see what's out there. And I also try, like I've sold a bunch of stuff, so I'm on there, buying and selling pretty much all the time, trying to upgrade certain stuff, different areas. Within the last 5 years or so, I think that I've kind of shifted my my thought to more like vintage stuff, and I started collecting signed Hall of Fame rookies from it initially started out like just try to get a bunch of baseball guys. Now I've gotten to the point I think that the ones that I need still are a little too expensive for my blood right now, but yeah, so it kind of blended, to baseball signed Hall of Fame rookies, and now it's kind of branched off into hockey, basketball a little bit. I grew up playing hockey, so that was kind of the next area. I was like, all right, let's shift from baseball into hockey and see what we can do there.
Okay, when you say there's certain cards you're still shooting for, I'm guessing you mean in terms of price range or how rare they are. Like Honus Wagner cards basically don't exist. There's so few of them out there in the world. I'm guessing you're not talking about that level of cards, but what kind of card would you collect that would be at the top of your bucket list that's within reason?
Oh man, that's kind of tough. I would say probably something like Mickey Mantle rookie card. Like that's, I mean, even like the perfect PSA 10, even PSA 9s go for like $100,000 plus. So it's like I probably will never buy one of those, but you can get some pretty worse condition, I guess you would say, worse condition examples for decent prices, but still they're relatively expensive. I'm trying to think here if there's anything like I'm specifically looking for. More so, it's just like trying to find guys that are realistically in the price range to add. I've got over like 70 different signed Hall of Fame rookies from baseball players. So my guy growing up was Derek Jeter. So I think that would be my first answer, is something Jeter related, but I've kind of already checked a lot of those off the list, which is nice. But yeah, I think just growing up as a Yankee fan, it was probably anything Yankees. Like, I would never obtain a Babe Ruth rookie or something like that. Like, those are just way too expensive. But yeah, it's been cool for me to like kind of learn the game through trading cards and sports cards. Like I said, growing up around baseball, around sports, learning stuff from my dad. One of our favorite movies is Field of Dreams. So there's the clip in the beginning of the movie where they show like the old Cracker Jack cards of Shoeless Joe Jackson and different guys throughout that. So like those would be some cool cards to try and get, like those older pre 1930 Cracker Jack, or like T206, the Honus Wagner. Yeah, like you said, there's only about 5 in existence for that, so I don't think that'll ever come into my collection.
Would you want to make it a mission of yours to try and collect the cards of all your teammates so you keep track?
I actually thought about that recently. It would be pretty extensive because I've kind of bounced around a lot. I have, like, over the years, I've gotten I try to grab some stuff of some of my best friends on teams, stuff like that. Whether it be like sign a ball, or if I happen to have a card, like do that, add it to the collection. But yeah, maybe like one of these days. It's actually funny. One of the clubhouse guys in when I was in Milwaukee, one of the guys in spring training, he mentioned about Council. Skip was trying to like collect all of the guys that he managed, like a card from them, and so it was pretty cool. That kind of got my wheels turning a little bit a couple of years ago. Didn't really think about it, and then recently thought, that'd kind of be cool. Maybe get a box and fill it up with guys that I played with. It seems like you play against everybody, and then like you play with half those guys. It's the way that baseball is. You're always intertwined somehow.
I assume you at least have a Julio rookie card.
I have a couple, yeah. See, that's what's cool. So the bullpen catcher in Milwaukee, Adam, he was a big collector. So like we text all the time. When I was there, we talk about different stuff, and he was like, "Dude, this is like the perfect scenario. Like you get to play with somebody, and you can kind of see like what they are. You know what I mean? You can see how hard they work and stuff like that, and like almost use that as like a scouting report for cards, and get in depth in it. Like I don't get too involved in that. Usually if I'm like buying and selling stuff, it's stuff that I have multiples of, and I want to use that money to go get something. Like I said, I'm more into like vintage stuff now, like 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s. But yeah, I do have a couple of Julio stuff. I started a box a couple years ago of just trying to. I'm big into like rookie cards, so like a couple Julio rookie cards and other guys throughout the league, Bobby Witt Jr. and guys like that. So,
Justin, that's almost insider trading. You might have the Fed show up on your door.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've profited off of it, so I don't think I ever will. But no, he when he brought it up, I was like, actually, it's not a bad idea. You kind of turn into your own little scout. You got your own little scouting service, just trying to figure that out. But it's cool. I mean, it's something fun that growing up, just being around sports, and then trading cards and kind of seeing. Now it's cool for me. It's like guys that I collected when I was a kid, now kind of running into them in the big leagues and be like, oh, I know that guy, or like a coach or something like that. Like I'm sure I've made a lot of coaches feel old when I'm like, oh yeah, I was your bat boy when you were in Double A, when you came through Binghamton. So it's cool. It's a cool little connection.
Last sports card question I have for you, and if you want to reveal this on your own Instagram page instead, you can tell us. But what are your top 3 most valuable pieces of memorabilia or cards that you own?
I get that question a lot, and I don't know. I would say like valuable wise, like monetarily, there's a couple. There's other things that like are just like special to me, just because of collecting with my dad and stuff like that. So recently, I think one of them, actually, my dad was down here the other day, this weekend, and he had a 1953 Topps Satchel Paige in his collection. He got it when he was a kid. The story is, I think he still remembers the story correctly, but he said he traded a couple football cards for it on the bus when he was a kid, and it's been in his collection ever since. And I recently just sent it off to get graded, so we got that back. So that, like, value wise and sentimentally, is pretty cool for the collection. Like I mentioned earlier, Jeter was kind of my guy growing up in New York in the mid 90s. I thought I was going to be the next Derek Jeter, just like everybody else. But so that was kind of my guy growing up. So a couple of his rookie cards I've picked up over the years, a couple signed rookie cards, which is kind of cool. I had the chance to meet him when I was in high school. So those for sure. I'm trying to think anything like specific. I'm like looking around the basement here to see if I can find anything. I don't know. Like sentimentally, I think like my debut jersey, stuff like that. Debut jersey with a lineup card. I think that is a culmination of it's something that's very priceless to me and my family. So it's a cool addition to the collection.
If we were going to get into some of your pitching stuff now, and that's all really cool, by the way. So I collected sports cards a little bit growing up, but I kind of got out of it as I got older. But it's cool. You still have a passion for it. And it's really cool that you've kept it up all these years because, yeah, it can turn into a really cool just culmination of all this memorabilia and cards and all this stuff especially as you continue to play ball and all of that. So I think that's awesome. If we were going to get into some of your pitching stuff here, I wanted to start with basically when you got to the Mariners, like, did you know from afar before you were traded over here what the reputation had been over the last couple of years about developing relievers and the success they'd had with relievers? Because you're another one of these guys that's come over and had a bunch of success in Seattle and turned into one of the top arms in the league this year out of the bullpen.
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, you kind of watch the entire league from afar. Going into camp, or even like going to getting traded over, I had a handful of guys I had either played with or worked out with over the past couple of years. So kind of just like checking in with them, and you kind of hear some stuff here and there. But yeah, I mean, you look back and it seems like every year there's a handful of guys that you see kind of bounce around, can't really find their footing in the big leagues, and then they get an opportunity and kind of run with it. And so going into getting traded, it was exciting, right? Because that's kind of the first thing that pops in your head. Is like, oh, you've seen all these guys, most recently, obviously, Paul, you see guys like that come over and within a year or two, it's like completely transcends their career. So it was cool. Getting the news I was traded, it's funny. It was about a year ago. I don't even know. I have to look at the calendar, but a year ago to the day. But it was in the middle of our baby shower, so we got a bunch of Brewers onesies that had to be returned. But yeah, getting that phone call, it was exciting. Any chance anytime you can get an opportunity to pitch in the big leagues, you're obviously not going to be mad about it. And to get traded over to Seattle, he said with the reputation, I knew going into camp that there was a good chance that there was a lot of stuff that we could kind of work on and tweak a few things and hopefully just ride it into a good season, which happened.
When you guys sat down for the first time and talked pitching and talked your bullpens, your mechanics, etc., what stood out to you the most?
I think it was just the knowledge, like how much information was available, and how simple they projected that information. I can't remember how far into camp. It wasn't much more than a week into reporting. But we kind of had like a one-on-one meeting with the staff and went in there, and we were kind of like, everything was on the table. It was like, all right, what do you think you do well? What do you think you need to work on? And they came back and said the same stuff, and it was just eye-opening in the fact that like I had never really gone through that previously in my career, even like way back to when I was drafted with the Pirates. It was nice to kind of have that affirmation, be like, this you do very well. We need to, start doing this more. And then, this stuff, all right, we need to work here. We need to start adding this in. So to really break it down and be like, all right, here's our strengths and here's what we think, can become a major strength going into the season. And then just kind of running with it, getting into camp, getting into games and just attacking what we talked about and just trying to project that over a season, which happened.
The thing I think we've heard the most is the message they send you guys, specifically as relievers. Instead of don't do this, it's do this. So instead of the negative, it's more of, hey, positive, 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 positive. Was there a pitch for you that you thought specifically took off because they're just like, hey, we believe in you, let it rip?
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely the change up this year against lefties. In previous years, I didn't really face a lot of lefties, which I wasn't very good against lefties. It was more of my fault, but no, like in previous years, I was mostly just sinker slider. And then going into the off season last year, the goal was to try to learn a cutter to kind of get off of the sinker slider. The sinker and the slider can be pretty big at times. So we were trying to find something, right in the middle there. I'd always thrown a change up, even from back in my college starter days. Like I threw a change up that was part of the repertoire, but coming up even in Pittsburgh and I was with the Rangers for a year, didn't really throw a ton of it. And even when I got, called up to the big leagues with Milwaukee, maybe I threw 5 of them, if that. Like I probably could count on one hand how many times I threw it. So that was kind of eye opening. In the meeting, Trent Blank was just like, "Why don't you throw your changeup anymore?" And I was like, "No one's ever really said it's good." So he was like, "No, like let's I think it can be a weapon against lefties." So we kind of just ran with it. I think it also helped the fact that having the cutter against lefties to kind of run something in and get guys off the sinker and the slider, and then being able to throw the changeup, pretty significantly and pretty often, definitely helped.
When did you start to lean into that sinker slider duo? Like what point in your career?
Yeah, I've always thrown a sinker. I hadn't thrown a slider until I guess it was 2019. After my second surgery, I was like, oh, like I kind of just want to scrap the four seam. My four seam was just a very bad two seam anyway, so I was like, why don't we just focus on the sinker two seam here, and kind of see what happens. And then adding in the slider, it was kind of 2019. It was pretty bad, to say the least. It was good enough to get some weak contact and the occasional strikeout, but it wasn't good enough to be like a really power pitch. So actually, it was more so during COVID. COVID shut down, kind of coming back home, and I've been working with the same pitching guy since 2019, 2020, and we were like, all right, let's try to learn a sweeper here. And it's funny, I tell Brash all the time. I had randomly found a video of Brash talking about his slider grip and like what his thought was with the slider. And this was back, like I said, back in 2020. It was one of his prospect videos. So I credit Brash a little bit to learning the grip. But yeah, so it was like, all right, let's kind of dissect this. And obviously during COVID there was not much going on, so I built a mound in the backyard and got a high school catcher that lives in the neighborhood, and we were throwing bullpens to him, me and a couple buddies, and yeah, we kind of just broke it down. It was like, all right, let's try to make this as big as possible and kind of just see what happens. And something all of a sudden just clicked, and I was able to really make that a weapon. It went from being something that was very average, more of like a bullet slider, to something that was like a sweeper, and I could get a lot of weak contact and swing and miss with it.
When you first came to Seattle, people loved throwing the Paul Sewald comp out there. When you got there, were you and Paul like putting your heads together and you trying to learn from him, from the success he had in this bullpen, not only for the similar story of Mariners see something in you, let's stick you in the bullpen, make your stuff play up and get the best version of you possible, but you two both have a very unique arm slot when it comes to throwing a baseball. So how much did you learn from Paul in the 4 months you guys shared a bullpen together?
Yeah, no, Paul was the best, right? Like I miss Paul. I think we all miss Paul. He was able to kind of, bring us under his wing a little bit and kind of show us the ropes. And like you said, he transcended his career to what it is now. And obviously a little bit different repertoire. He's more, four seam slider. I got the sinker, but like you said, kind of lower slots. He kind of has that upshoot ability. But no, I think more so for me, it was just kind of picking his brain. I was kind of thrown into the fire when I called up last year. So kind of just, looking at him from afar and watching how he went about his day. He gets the field, he'd go do treatment if he needed it. He'd get in the weight room, do all of his mobility stuff. And so I, tried to kind of just follow that lead. I don't think he knew, but I was kind of just like following him around a little bit to see what he did to be successful. So I think more so, obviously there was a lot of great conversations, but just kind of seeing him day in, day out, going to work and what he did to be prepared to pitch at the back end of the game was instrumental for all of us. You see how dominant he's been over the past couple of years, and you try to see that and try to add that to your routine as much as possible.
Okay, you mentioned Brash a minute ago, and I want to circle back to something. Even as a big league reliever, like when you got to the Mariners, the first time you ever saw him throw that slider up close, is it mesmerizing even as like in person as it is on TV?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's just like you just laugh because it's like, how do people hit this? They're like, you know what I mean? Like any of his stuff is, any pitch that he throws, it's like, how do guys even come close to hitting this? And that not many people do, but like when he does get hit, it's like, hey, yeah, tip your hat sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, guy put a good swing on a good pitch. But yeah, when I saw him throw for the first time, I was like, who is this guy? I mean, this is unbelievable. And I would joke with him throughout the year. He'd be like, oh, I want to start throwing a changeup, or I want to do this or do that. And I'm like, Brett, you don't need to do anything else. Like, just you have the right stuff. You're good. Like, just keep throwing your slider more, keep throwing your fastball more. Like, you'll be all right.
I mean, I think what encapsulates all of that. I guess you weren't quite on the big league roster yet, but I just think about that opening night at bat he had against J-Ram, against Jose Ramirez, where he made him just fall on the seat of his slider. Like, if that just doesn't encapsulate everything about Matt Brash, I don't know what does.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think I've seen that video like 100 times even this offseason. Like, it's always just being retweeted or on Pitching Ninja or something. I just watch it and just laugh. It's like, this is absurd.
Do you have a givable strikeout that you remember in your career? Did you ever nutmeg anybody?
First strikeout in the big leagues. Yeah, of course, now I'm going to fumble who it was. I believe it was Willie Castro with the Tigers. Back foot slider, literally off of his, like, swinging off his foot and bounced into the batter's box, or the other batter's box. So yeah, so first one, it was pretty easy.
All right, I'm hoping you can do us a favor here. Can you describe your cutter for us? Because most cutters you'll see move in on a hitter. Yours moves away because you throw it a lot to lefties. Like, how would you describe that cutter of yours?
Yeah, it's weird, right? Especially, my goal is to always have it kind of like slightly run in on hitters, on lefties. But it's more so just like a four seam. It has the spin of a cutter, but at times it just kind of stays plain and just like is, I hate to say straight, but like it does have that like just effect that it's either running a little bit of away or a little bit cut. There was times last year where I think I would try to manipulate it a little too much and it would just back up. Even throwing it this off season, just trying to get back to that, like, let's have it move 1 to 3 inches into a lefty. But I think last year for me, it was more so just trying to just have something up in the zone, and being able to do that and have it, kind of up and away to righties, up and into lefties. And if I'm going to miss, it's going to be up, instead of trying to throw it, anywhere else. And then being able to throw the sinker off of that, and then obviously throwing the changeup against lefties too. Just kind of gives everybody a different look. I can be very like down in the zone with the sinker, slider, even the changeups that way. So being able to kind of just run one up there, for me, it was more so when I learned it. It was more so just, let's just have something that can show effect up in the zone, saying, oh, I can get it up there, and kind of get guys off of the stuff at the bottom of the zone. And it's kind of transitioned to now, like, I can throw it up there and get some swings and misses, get some weak contact, and kind of use that to my advantage. It's kind of funny that in spring training last year, after one of my games, Skip came up in the dugout. He was like, hey, like, the cutter looks great. I don't see you throwing a ton of cutters this year. I think you're going to get a lot of strikeouts on like front hip sinkers. And I was like, yeah, I totally agree. And then it kind of just got a mind of its own, and was able to throw it, pretty high percentage for a cutter. Like I said, I hadn't thrown a lot to lefties and have a big sample size against lefties. So just being able to do that and get them off the sinker was kind of the main goal, and it's kind of transitioned to a little more.
Justin, I want to compare and contrast a couple of seasons you've had in your career. There's some quotes out there of your Indie Ball 2017 season, and the quote that stuck out to me is, after your time in the Pirates organization in 2017, you went to go pitch in Indie Ball that season, and you said that's the most fun, to that point, the most fun you'd ever had playing baseball. Does this past season top that eventually, finally, in your sense?
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I think that I think every season after that season has kind of topped it in some different way. Yeah, it was just like a weird point in my career. Getting drafted, obviously, that was a goal. Get drafted, play pro ball. Didn't really know. Growing up, I didn't think I would ever get to play, let alone in college, let alone in professional baseball. It was always a goal, especially after being a bat boy, just being around those guys, seeing the lifestyle, and see how guys handled that. So being able to, play a handful of years with the Pirates, after that getting released, I was kind of over baseball. I'd tell people, I was like, yeah, I was done. I was ready to move on. I was kind of just over one. I was over being hurt. I had 2 Tommy Johns up to that point, so I was kind of just done with the rehab stuff. And then, just unfortunately didn't get an opportunity after surgery, after rehabbing for almost 2 years, at least just to go out there and sink or swim. But yeah, so then go to indie ball, and didn't really want to go to indie ball. I never thought my career would take me to indie ball, but I got a phone call from actually one of the minor league coaches now. We were drafted together, Mike Francosa. Sos called me. He was the first person I met in pro ball, and he called me after I got released and was like, "Hey, we're looking for pitching if he wants to keep playing." And he gave my number to the manager, and I got his number, and I was like, I hope he doesn't call, because I was just kind of over at that point. And he ended up calling. We had a great conversation, and kind of led me into indie ball. Yeah, just from like day one, it was like the only goal in indie ball is to win. So going into that, and it was like, obviously there's some development. There's a big range of guys in indie ball. There's a lot of guys that came just out of college that haven't played any professional baseball. And then on the flip side, we had a couple guys that played in the big league. So it was like anywhere in between. And it was kind of like, if you want to try and get better and get out of indie ball, you could do that. If you didn't, you just wanted to hang out and play, like that was okay too. But the goal was just to go out and win every night. And so that mindset was very relaxing and very fun, especially once we got rolling. Our team, we joked that like we were just a bunch of misfits, and we just had fun playing baseball, and we'd go out and have a good game, hang out after the game, and wake up and do it again. So yeah, so it kind of just opened my eyes to going back to playing the game for fun, and that's why you start playing the game is just to have fun with your buddies. So yeah, after that season, had a good year, and I tell everybody that I was expecting to play 1 year of indie ball and kind of just ride off into the sunset. I guess go get a real job, and after rehabbing all that time, I was like, oh, I just had a great year. Why not try to throw for teams, see what happens? Threw for a few teams that off season. Nothing really materialized. Went back to start the year in indie ball, and then got picked up by the Rangers halfway through. Yeah, I've kind of had that mindset every year now. It's like, well, this is the last year playing. Like, let's go have some fun, and it's kind of worked out up to this point.
So you did mention that you really enjoyed playing in indie ball. I read that you really enjoyed your time there once you got into it. Was it the group of guys you were playing with, or was there more to it?
No, it definitely was a group of guys. It was cool, and it was also very close to where I grew up in Binghamton. So we were only maybe 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. So my thought process going to play was play one season kind of close to home, have some family come down, and then kind of just that's it for me type thing. And but yeah, once I kind of dove into it and was there with a group of guys, like I said, you have such a wide range of guys, college guys that play in the big leagues. A former teammate of mine, Mike Francosa, with the Pirates. So it was like that familiarity with a couple of guys, and then also being tied in, being healthy for the full year was big. Didn't really have to rehab, which was nice. So yeah, it was just that group of guys that I still talk to this day. I see Mike, obviously during the season and stuff like that, in spring training, and just like catching up with those guys, and everybody's kind of gone their separate ways, but being able to have that camaraderie kind of right from the get go, and like I said, it was also a lot better because we were winning. So I think that the culmination of a good group of guys playing good baseball made it for a lot of fun.
Lifestyle wise, are there any big differences between indie ball and minor league ball?
Yeah, I mean we definitely, like, from like a housing standpoint, like we had host families. My first year I didn't have a host family. We lived on like a college campus in the dorms. So it was a couple guys, like 3 guys to a dorm setup, kind of like a suite setup. And then my second year, we went back. I had a host family for the first half. And so yeah, it's like you don't get paid a ton of money. You're kind of just playing the game for the love of the game more than anything. Trying to play for the exposure. It was a cool league for me too, because like I said, it was close to home in New York. There was 3 teams in New York, New Jersey, and then 3 teams up in Canada. So your road trips, you kind of knew where you were going in Canada. You kind of got to explore different places. But I think overall it's very similar in different aspects. Obviously we still had a bus going to Canada, but the New York, New Jersey games were all commuting trips. So, we'd throw a couple guys in the car and you'd talk for most of the game and then you'd drive back after. So that was a little bit different.
Justin, could you relive the breakthrough moment you had in 2019? You've talked about it on a couple podcasts before, but in case some of our listeners haven't heard how you kind of got back in front of the eyes of the Rangers and then eventually the Brewers and eventually the Mariners as well with a bullpen against a bunch of Ivy Leaguers who just so happened to crash your workout on a given Friday in 2019. Could you go back through that for us?
Yeah, no, for sure. So it was, the off season between 18 and 19. I was a minor league free agent again, so I kind of didn't have a great year in 2018. So I knew I wasn't really going to re-sign with the Rangers. I was just hoping I could get a couple workouts and kind of see what happens, maybe sign on the team. If not, I think I probably would have retired. But at the time, it was me and one other guy, Tim Ponto. We were working out at the gym, and like I mentioned earlier, I worked with the same pitching guy for years, George Zirkle. So it was the three of us. We would show up to the gym. We would turn on like 3 lights in the entire place. So it was just like a dungeon in there. And we would play catch every day. And we'd work out and throw bullpens. Our bullpen schedule is usually Tuesdays, Fridays. And this just happened to be a Friday. And this was I would say almost a month after all the other pro guys had left for spring training. So it was just 3 of us going in, and just happened to be Harvard was there playing University of Penn that weekend. They were in town, and game got rained out, so they were using the facility just kind of as an indoor workout type thing. And George, the pitching guy, went up to the head coach, was like, "Hey, you have any guys that maybe want at bats? Like, we have two pro guys that are looking to throw in front of teams. They haven't faced hitters recently. We're just trying to get them, a couple hitters." And thankfully, that guy obliged and threw a couple guys in there, and we did some lives, and it was pretty eye opening because I had thrown relatively hard in my career. Occasionally getting up 95, 96, 97. For some reason, everything clicked kind of this day, and go out there first, I guess, quote unquote, first inning of this live, and I was like 97 to 100. And then I go out there for a second inning, kind of same thing, and touching 100 on the gun. So it was kind of a weird like transition. It was like, okay, like I thought nothing was going to happen, and now like we put together this compilation video and kind of threw it up on Twitter, and next thing you know, it was retweeted, however many times. I have to go back and see what the numbers are now, but retweeted and liked and shared. And this was kind of right when the whole like pitching ninja, I forget the other account. There was another account, but it was right around the time that those accounts were coming up. So it was like, oh, you tag them and they would retweet it, and you're just trying to get eyes on the video essentially. And it's funny. I've now heard like the other side of the story. Like I've obviously lived that side of hearing from the Brewers and being like, okay, like we're ready to move forward. Like I said, that video, that live BP happened on a Friday. We posted it that night. By Saturday afternoon, the Brewers called and was like, "Hey, we're ready to make a move." And then I was on a flight Monday morning out to Arizona. So everything happened very quickly. And it's funny now, like I've heard the other side of it from actually Pat Murphy, the now manager of Milwaukee. He one spring 2021, he get into camp, got there like a week early, and we're on the backfields just playing catch one day, and he walks by and starts calling me Chips. I'm like, why the heck is he calling me Chips? And he's like, oh, Chips this, Chips that. And I'm like, what's the story behind the Chips? And after a couple of days, finally, like, I think it was Brandon Woodruff was like, hey, why are you calling Topa Chips? And he's like, all right, like we signed Topa off of this Twitter video, this like little compilation video. And I guess his story is that Matt Arnold, the GM for the Brewers, was just flipping through Twitter one night, like laying in bed, eating a bag of chips, and came across the video and then like forwarded it to somebody in pro scouting. And the next thing you know, I signed like a couple days later. So it's calling me Chips because of that. So it's cool. It's cool now to like I said, I had seeing like, or knowing both sides of the story. Like, that was just happened to be scrolling through Twitter, seeing a video. And then obviously on the other side, was going into the facility for just another Friday workout, and it just turned into something more.
Have you ever asked Matt Arnold about the story or just Murphy?
No, it's funny. So that spring, that was my first big league camp. I debuted in 2020 during COVID, and then so that was my first big league camp. And they called me up to the front in front of everybody. I kind of did a little Q&A type thing, and Counts asked me, he's like, "Hey, what's the story?" So I was like, Murph tells it better, and that it got approval from Matt. So I've never personally asked him, but in that little Q&A, he said that sounded about pretty similar to the actual story.
Have you ever gotten around to thanking Rob at Pitching Ninja for the retweet and the exposure?
I have like a little bit. I've never like talked to him in person. Just kind of like through different retweets. We talked about that, that strikeout, my first strikeout there, the one that hit off of Willie Cashman's foot. I think he posted the video and then kind of a little bit of the background of the story. Like, we retweeted one of his things that got signed, and now the culmination of getting to the big leagues. So I think just exchanged a couple of tweets there, but it would be cool to catch up eventually and talk to him.
I'm just picturing Arnold like sitting in bed, like you said, like actually eating chips, scrolling on Twitter like the rest of the world does. And then a video pops across his feed, and all of a sudden his eyes like pop open. It's like, well, this guy has pretty good stuff. I better stop what I'm doing. I better send this to somebody before somebody else grabs them. So that's
it was cool. And I had also thrown for a couple teams earlier in that off season, and the Brewers were one of them. They had sent out one of their, I guess, local I don't know if he was cross checker or area scouts. This would come see me throw. So there was a little bit of a background there. I had talked to a couple of people in the front office. Nothing really progressed at the time. It was like, okay, like we have your stuff, like keep us updated. So I was emailing them, I would say maybe weekly or bi-weekly with different, TrackMan, Rapsodo, metrics, stuff like that, and kind of where I'm at from a volume standpoint. And so there was a little bit of communication, but then when that video went out, I actually put it on Twitter first, and then I didn't send it to them right away. I think I maybe sent it the next morning or something like that, and that's when they're like, okay, yeah, we're ready to move forward now. So it happened pretty quick.
Justin, if we had 5 short wrap-up questions for you as we start to conclude this thing. We asked a bunch of the big leaguers these same ones just to try to let fans get to know you guys a little bit better. First one I've got for you is your go-to pregame and postgame meal is what?
Ooh, I don't really have. If you asked me this during indie ball, it was before every start I would have a turkey sub. It was like turkey, lettuce, tomato, mayo, cheese. It was like the same thing. I don't know. I guess I had a good year, so I was like, all right, let's keep it rolling. Now it's kind of just whatever we got in the clubhouse. I would say there's a couple staples. Have a lot of PB&Js. Like it's a big minor league thing, but it's kind of in your blood. I think everybody that's played the minor leagues for a long time, it's like we joke, we call it like minor league steak, the peanut butter and jelly. So maybe that. Sometimes we got some sushi in there, so I'll pop a couple pieces of sushi. But after the game, same thing. I'm kind of wide open. I do eat a lot of Chipotle, so I would say maybe Chipotle.
Are you and Bryce Miller ever putting orders together for Chipotle?
No. We gotta get Bryce like a sponsorship or something, because every day during the season we walk in with Chipotle. Yeah, it's like you can only eat it so much. Like I love Chipotle. Don't get me wrong, but I can only have it a couple times a week.
That's the urban legend we seem to hear is we hear every single day, and I think to myself, like, even as a big leaguer, that feels like a lot of money, especially when there's food at the clubhouse or whatever. So
yeah, he would walk in with his Chipotle bag more often than not, I think.
Justin, if it makes you feel any better, I think the 2 primary options you just named minus the sushi, you just named Lyle's diet for the most part. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
I've eaten a PB&J similar to Bryce Miller's Chipotle diet probably every day of my life. And now that I hear this from you guys, it's like, well, I'm just trying to eat like a big leaguer. So
yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, good transition.
Second question, Justin, is your 3 favorite TV shows ever?
Oh, it's a good one. I was big into Entourage and Breaking Bad kind of at the same time. It's funny with Breaking Bad, I never watched it when it was like actually being aired. And then I was in instructs with the Pirates, and a bunch of my buddies were like, "Oh, it's the finale, the series finale of Breaking Bad." And I was like, "I've never even heard of the show. Whatever, let's just watch it. Whatever." So I actually watched the season finale episode before I watched any other episode. So like I watched that and I knew how it ended, and I was like, "Oh, I should go back and watch the whole thing." So then I like started the next year watching all the episodes. So yeah, definitely those two. Me and my wife are big like Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med people. So we're always catch up on that. I think we've caught up for the most part. There's a new season coming up soon. Little plug to Chicago series, but yes, I'd say those three. Chicago PD more than the other two. Our dog is actually named Hank after the main character in Chicago PD. So yeah, definitely a little connection there. But yeah, those three are the big ones.
I did something pretty similar to what you did with Breaking Bad with Game of Thrones. I didn't watch the finale first, but I knew I think it was the final episodes of season 7 were coming up. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta catch up.
Yeah,
and I think I managed to binge through all of it and catch up by the time the finale aired. So that was it's a good way to go.
Episodes go by pretty quick. Yeah.
Gives you some motivation to keep going.
Exactly.
All right, third question: best and worst baseball road trip you've ever been on, and this can include the minor leagues and indie ball.
Best road trip. Can I just say any big league road trip because they're all awesome? Yeah, obviously, like first big league road trip was cool. Just getting that whole experience. Obviously, it was during COVID, so it was a little different than how it is now. Guys can get up and mingle and playing cards and stuff like that. Where during COVID, it was kind of like, all right, you're sitting in your seat, but you also walk on the plane, and they got all the snacks and the food you can think of, so you're never going hungry. Yeah, I was just saying any big league trip is pretty cool. I think if I had to pick a specific one, going back to New York this year. Pitching in Citi Field, being at Yankee Stadium for the first time, had a bunch of family and friends there. So being back in the city, not too far from where we went to college, was pretty special. Worst one, we had one in 2014 when we were in the South Atlantic League. I played for West Virginia Power. This was back when it was the Pirates and not the Mariners. But we had one. I'm trying to remember the exact. It was like something along the lines of it was after the All-Star break. We went from West Virginia down to Rome, Georgia, then Rome back to West Virginia for 1 or 2 series, and then up to Lakewood, New Jersey. So it was like the top and bottom of the league were in Jersey, at the end of one week, and we were in Rome, Georgia, at the end of the previous week. So that was probably the worst. You just get stuck on a bus and you can't really get comfortable. You're trying to find ways to get comfortable and grab some sleep.
Okay, Justin, so my next question, I think we already know the answer to this question. It's what's your favorite baseball player of all time? So I'm going to change it up on you. Who's your second favorite baseball player of all time?
Yeah, obviously, first one, definitely Derek Jeter. Second, oh man, I'll pick a pitcher, I guess. I'll go with. Really have to go through the Rolodex here. I don't have an easy one right off the bat. I really like watching Roger Clemens when it's kind of his heyday. Just power pitcher. He kind of had that bad boy mentality. I just remember the Mets Yankees series when the whole Piazza stuff was going on. So growing up a Yankee fan, it was kind of the Rocket was on the mound. He kind of tuned in all the time. And I would say too, also kind of like a 1A or 1 is Jeter, 2A, 2B with Rocket and probably Mariano Rivera. Just now that as a reliever, it's he was somebody that I was looking at a lot of cutter videos, trying to get maybe 1% of information from his cutter, but so just seeing how dominant he was, it was I still get chills thinking about going to Yankee Stadium as a kid and hearing Enter Sandman for the first time at Yankee Stadium as a fan, and just wow, this game is pretty much over. Very similar, obviously, with Trevor Hoffman, with the Hells Bells, but yeah. So I'd say Roger Clemens and Mariano Rivera.
Those are 2 good ones. One Hall of Famer definitely. And one, for my money, should be Hall of Famer. So
right, no, for sure.
Last one for you. You said that you almost got to a point where you ended up quitting baseball. So if you weren't playing baseball, what do you think you'd be doing?
Probably something. I think my answer a couple years ago would have been a little different. I went to school for accounting and finance. There's probably something in that field in economics or finance. I think now I would say something in real estate. We had bought our house in the off season of 2018 and did like me and my father-in-law and my dad, like we all kind of did a lot of work to kind of update things. So I kind of fell in love with that kind of things. It's probably something like flipping houses or renovating houses and doing something in real estate.
That's a good one. Well, Justin, this has been awesome. We appreciate big time you taking all the time to sit down and talk with us. This has been a blast, and we certainly hope to do it again soon.
No, definitely. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Before we wrap up the show, a word from BetterHelp. Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or you're just a human who lives in this world who's going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you with a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in our description. It's betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod. That's betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod. Clicking that link helps support this podcast, but also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/marinelayerpod. I really enjoyed that conversation with Justin Topa, and I'll tell you why. I never got to meet Justin when I was at the field. I got one weekend at the field this past year in 2023. Didn't get to talk to Justin Topa. You'd gotten to talk to Justin a couple of times, gotten the connection. I know he'd seen some of our stuff online, but I hadn't really gotten to talk or meet with him. And the thing you emphasized to me the most, and we mean this in the best way possible, talking about Justin Topa, is he's just a normal dude. Just having a normal conversation with someone who also happens to throw 99 miles an hour. Now, Lyle and myself and Justin, two different branches of DNA of here human because he can throw hard and we can't. But everything else, I mean, it sounded completely normal, and I really enjoyed that conversation. And the fact that he is allowed to be very nerdy about his card collection, even at 32. I think that's awesome.
And that's what we kind of discovered with this talk with him is, look, all the guys we've talked to on the field, on the podcast, they've all been great. And we talk about that all the time. And all of them have very interesting stories. But when we say, yeah, he's a very normal dude, like he's a big football fan, he has a sports card collection, he like all this stuff. He's a big Eagles fan, so he was talking about getting ready for the playoff game and all that stuff. Yeah, so he was awesome. And he just happened to also be really smart, worked his tail off to get to the big leagues. Throws a lot of really good pitches, but yeah. Oh, and I should add, he eats a lot of PB&Js. Normal dude.
Yeah, I could see you going like,
oh, I couldn't quite fist pump on screen, but I was fist pumping in my own head because as somebody who has that as like the base of their diet, music to my ears that big leaguers are sitting in that clubhouse eating peanut butter and jelly.
We love to see it.
Yeah, and you said too, it's like he kind of epitomizes don't give up on your dreams, right? You're talking about a guy that had 2 Tommy Johns. He was in indie ball. He was working his way through the minors. He gets into his 30s. And now here in his early 30s, he's thriving in the big leagues. One of the best arms in the league this year out of the bullpen.
It could have been very easy to give up. And I think that's a message to most people that all the successful things in your life don't always happen in your 20s. For a lot of athletes, especially Major League Baseball and especially the social media world, we can compare and contrast everything everyone else does to ourselves. You can go see that there are 21-year-olds who blow the socks off of everyone in Major League Baseball, like Julio Rodriguez. But the fact is that that's the exception and not really the norm, and that everyone, if they're talented enough and hardworking enough, can get to where they want to. It just might not always happen at the same time as everyone else does. For Justin Topa, he might have to reach age 30 to live out his dream of playing professional baseball at the highest level in MLB. For someone like Julio Rodriguez, things come pretty easy to Julio, so he can make it at age 20. Everyone's different, and that's okay. And now Justin Topa is thriving in the big leagues at 32, and we're so happy for him.
And you know they're going to rely on him again here in 2024 and pretty heavily too. It's that basically same bullpen group that's running it back as they should. It was one of the best bullpens in the league. And those back end three, Topa, Brash, Munoz, they're going to rely on those guys a lot in 24. So we're really happy Justin came on the pod. He was awesome to talk to. And we are wishing him nothing but success here in 2024 and moving forward too. So with that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form pod, you can do so wherever you get your audio podcasts. Make sure to download, subscribe, or follow the show, I should say, and leave us a 5-star review. Those downloads and reviews help out a ton. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, where our full video podcast is, and check us out on social media on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.